Om Mantranam Jivabhuta Tulya Smrita Shakti Rupaya Tatahina Valarohe Nishvalaha Sharata Bravat. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. She, whom the illumined seers know and remember as the imperishable Shakti, is the secret in all the slokas and sutras of the scriptures. Without her, O fair ones, all the tattvas would be as useful as clouds without rain. She is the imperishable and perfect I consciousness, existing in the multitude of words, and the secret of all mantras, whose highest essence consists of non-duality. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidveshovahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May Brahman, divine reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings, and may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. We welcome you all here to our big island of Hawaii chapter of SRV, where we are about to enter into the second class in a 3-class series called Mahamaya and Maya. Intelligence versus matter is the subtitle. So the idea there is that there's this world of name and form and time and space, which is giving rise to cause and effect, which is called Maya. But then if a person wants to go beyond those 5, relativity it's called, and get to the reality, then one begins the inner search and moves inside to the various chambers of the Father's mansion, as Jesus was wont to say, and finds that there are higher levels where the tattvas, which I just chanted about to open this class, without Divine Mother, the tattvas are all as useful as clouds without rain. Tattvas are stations like the 5 senses and 5 dream senses and the 5 elements outside and fourfold mind and cosmic mind inside, Mahat. Those are all called tattvas, or principles. And they're principles that are insentient, that consciousness will visit to make its journey outside into the external world, called evolution. And then, thankfully for all of us, as Vedantists and Buddhists and yogis and tantricists and so forth, there's an involution too that happens where we give up these tattvas, like we do every night in deep sleep. So consciousness will take on these tattvas, 24 of them we know, and then give them up in reverse fashion, sort of like an in-breath, a held breath, and an out-breath, or waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, or birth, life, and death. These are all expanded versions of this threefold process that's going all the time. And so in evolution and involution is happening through these tattvas. I just chanted about those. They're only useful if consciousness, in this way of speaking, Mahamaya, the Great Mother, the great Mother or Mahashakti, the great Shakti power, visits them, and that's only helpful to us if we're aware of her. Otherwise, we become just aware of the outer principles and fall victim to attachment to them, and we're not able to lift off of them like a hot air balloon would lift off the earth after dropping its sandbags. The mind needs to have that buoyancy, Sri Ramakrishna said. And otherwise, it's like rainwater, seeks the lowest place to settle. So we know the ordinary mind is like that. It starts to brood, gets depressed, falls victim to laziness, however you want to say it. Tamas, the gunas, get to it and cause heaviness in the mind, and that may last for days and days, or as far as all intents and purposes, maybe lifetimes. People are very heavy. Their minds are always heavy. They've developed a sort of happiness, a sort of habit of lethargy. But as far as happiness goes too, they can develop a habit of happiness, and it's called sattva, which is the opposite guna of tamas, which is lightness, more lightness of being, which would cause a kind of giddiness or attachment to pleasures and so forth, which may be a better springboard towards balance, higher life, but at the same time can also cause habits like heaven-seeking, the Upanishads say. The heaven-seeking senses, the rishis, when they meditated, tried to get beyond those. So whether you look at it in terms of worlds called lokas or stations, tattvas, there's a consciousness that's associating with them. Saw the recent interview between Deepak Chopra and Swami Sarva Priyananda yesterday, one of the Swamis of the Ramakrishna order, talking about matter and consciousness. Timely, since my class here was about intelligence and matter, and how it's put in terms of the latest scientific consciousness studies of certain groups that are springing up around that, where intellectual Westerners are beginning to question. And then the Advaitic look at that talks about, if you talk about it from science or Vedanta, matter is unreal. Both agree that matter is not anything that you can make sense out of, really. It's our experience of it through the senses is different than vibrating particles, you might want to say. So when you're talking about intelligence and matter, that intelligence is, if it's taken in the highest rendering, is that consciousness, which is so difficult to find. People are into three things, basically: matter, the universe, and their experience of those things. And all three of those cover consciousness. So we never find consciousness. In fact, you can never really find consciousness because you're that. And great sayings like Tattvamasi and Aham Brahmasmi and that thou art, kind of great Mahavakyas, are meant to try and convey that to you as swiftly as it possibly can. Maybe take you by surprise one day, and just lift all of this conditioning and all this superimposition, all these imaginings and this dream of life, and forever quench them. This thirst for life forever quench. It drags from birth to death, and death to birth, the soul, as Swami Vivekananda was wont to say in his beautiful poem, Song of the Sannyasin, Song of the Free. So all of this very timely to take a look at the religion of the West, which is probably science right now. People are following that and trusting that more than anything. But as the Vedantists are wont to say, we cannot trust science to tell us about divine reality. That's not their province. So we have to go to higher levels of thinking, or not thinking, as the case may be, to find hints to reveal to us our own consciousness. And of course, there are different ways of speaking about that too. If you want to lift off of matter and go towards intelligence, then you're going to want to probably take the senses off of objects. That would be your first challenge, you see. Can you do that? And if you can, and then you're just ending up in your senses, then you find that the senses have a power to see, and a power to hear, and a power to touch, and those are very subtle in your senses. Those are subtle senses inside of you. The gross senses let go of the object, but the subtle senses are still retaining them as thought, basically. It shows two things. Matter is thought, made concretized. Objects are just solidified thought. And it happens so quick that we don't understand it, from waking, dreaming to deep sleep, or from birth, life to death. It all gets projected in front of us for our own experience. That's why our own experience is also a blockage to realizing that which is the experiencer. The experiencer will get caught in the experience. So that's one way in which you can make sense philosophically out of the predicament that you're in if you're an embodied being, or you think you're an embodied being. Because the Atman, the indivisible self in mankind, can associate with objects, but it should never get attached to them or identify with them. Or if it does get attached to them, it should be able to attach and detach at will, my teacher used to say. So there are really three levels of things there. One person who gets caught in them, one person who denies them and lifts off of them, and one person who knows they're not real but can also use them. So the masterful souls are those who can attach and detach at will, and they're less of the ascetic monastic kind of temperament, generally speaking, and more of the yogi kind of temperament, or the tantricist kind of temperament that can deify things as they're being used. It's like, oh, can I have permission to use that couch as an object for my own comfort? Only if you realize that, that's an object, and it's a projection and it's not real, then you have the right to use it. You see, sit in it and so forth. Otherwise, it becomes a habit, and it's where you gravitate to, and then you're a materialist, and comfort is your only goal. There's no higher goal. So you might say you have to beg the object for using it. You have to revere it. And that's really the tantric approach that I'm going to show today about tattvas. And you would have to consider whatever you're utilizing to be a manifestation of divinity. That would be the tantric rule, called deification. That's a nice word in English, deification. Instead of using the object or owning the object or coveting the object because it's going to get stolen or decay or lost or stop working, there's so many ways in which it's wise not to do that with objects. So the one more wise thing to do would be to deify it, and so that you'd see it as a projection of your own pure mind. Now, if it's a projection of your own impure mind, then there are a lot of colorations there, that happen, like attachment and pleasure-seeking and complacency and worse. And pretty soon you're gathering objects for your own, many of them, like wealth, see, and that becomes a kind of gluttony that will weigh you down. Then the hot air balloon of the mind will not be able to rise. It'll stay on the ground with no chance, and the rainwater settling in the lowest place would be the next stage for that. So in order to lighten the burden, the mind practices this kind of leaving off of the tattvas, and it must do it consciously. So if right now this room is my only world, then I better take each thing. I should either lift off it and detach from it, or I should deify it. Maybe best thing to do would be deify it and then let go of it. Because not all the people have such a strength as ascetics do to just rip it out by the roots. That is unreal, I give it up, neti neti, it's gone. Now I'm not even going to think about it anymore. That's a very agile and adept mind that can do that at will. And it's not such a matter of I must do it or I get bound. It's more of a matter of seeing your true nature, or desiring to be free, to gain enlightenment. You must have a higher goal or a higher ideal here than the world and its things, its pleasures, its objects. There must be a higher ideal in place, or of course this will never even cause you the urge to seek enlightenment, called mumukshutvam. I must have a desire to be free. So what's binding me would be the first question, and then I have to give that up would be the first action. So how do you give it up would be then the question. If you do it tantrically, yogically, vedantically, buddhistically, and there must also then be a reason why you should be doing that, a method behind it. So last week, the charts we put up had to do first with introducing the Divine Mother to us. So we had 2 charts about Mahamaya, or Mahashakti, side by side. And we saw how she's this subtlest of all forces, right? Like I just chanted. Mantranam Jivabhuta Tulya Smrita Shakti Rupaya. This essence of Divine Mother wisdom. It gets remembered by the seers, and therefore they can gain victory over all things by the power, by seeing this power. Practicing the yoga of meditation, we chanted this morning at meditation, the ancient seers saw and beheld the Devatma Shakti, who had been veiled by all her modes of nature, but was always one, and whom they couldn't comprehend earlier because of the limitation of their own intellect. So when we talk about intelligence versus matter, then we also have to make a finer distinction. If we separate the wheat from the chaff, and matter is the chaff, and intelligence is the wheat, then there must be 2 kinds of wheat too, you see. A finer grade and a lesser grade, you might say. So intelligence that gets caught in an intellectual frame of reference and thinks that the intelligence that it's using, the lower knowledge that it's using, is the solution to everything, would be the lesser grade of intelligence. The higher grade of intelligence would be Shakti. And that would be a capital I. The word for that is buddhi. And we know that great beings took that word and did marvelous things, even named themselves after it, like Buddha. So this is a capital I intelligence that's beyond the intellect being a tattva that holds knowledge, but intelligence itself is the essence of that knowledge. So we pose that side by side against matter, like God and Mammon, or Brahman and Maya, you might say, Shiva and Shakti, Purusha and Prakriti. There are many ways in which they've put these side by side for us to see. And so today would be more like consciousness and the tattvas. These tattvas will show us a strong distinction between lower Maya and higher Maya. And I'll show you that in terms of the 36 Shaivite tattvas that we want to look at, and also in terms of the kinds of beings that man these higher stations. So if ordinary beings are manning the outer tattvas, 10 of them, right? So earth, air, fire, water, ether, tasting, touching, hearing, smelling, seeing. Let's call those the 10 outer principles. 10 stations. Right now I'm concentrating on my eyes, so I'm seeing things. Oh, I just shift to concentrating on my ears. Now I'm hearing the fans in the room, you see, in the rain outside. Oh, I concentrated towards, smelling that incense that's floating by from the puja we did last night, you see, in the next room. Navaratri is coming up. The worship of Divine Mother reality starts middle of next week. So, or is it middle of this week? It's coming up very soon. So, anyway, there's 10 outer stations here that my consciousness is floating between, isn't it? And I have a power to concentrate them. If I want to lose my eyes only, I can shut out the other four senses, or I should be able to, or quite often they'll just happen naturally. If I read a book, it's my eyes that's going on. If I'm listening to music, it's my ears that's going on. My eyes often shut. So consciousness mans each of these stations and gives up the other four. Tonight in deep sleep, it'll give up all five. That's something to meditate on. That's leading you toward the Advaita Vedanta, that I don't have any self tonight in deep sleep. I went away. Who was I then? Or who am I? If my idea of myself goes away tonight, then who am I? Who took that away from me? Maybe I should thank the person that took that away from me. Because then when I'm empty is when I'm happiest, and when I'm full, with all these objects and pleasures and sensual entertainments and so forth, is when I'm feeling uneasy. Dis-ease means lack of ease. So the mind becomes at lack of ease around everything because it knows those things will be taken away from it soon. I have to turn off the TV, or I have to finish my meal and can't eat anymore, and then my digestion process will kick in and I might not feel so good for part of it. So everyone's always brooding on the ends of things as they're enjoying the middles and as they're anticipating the beginnings. And that's really the outward life of the senses. So let's just say we have these 10 outer senses here, and 10 outer principles, or tattvas they're called. And if my life is restricted just to those, then it's called worldly life. Could even maybe say earthly life, but you're going to have to add in action, karma, activity. So everyone's engaging in some sort of action, not only to enjoy these things, but to gain these things, and to maintain them and sustain them. And basically, let's look at it all as a kind of wealth that's been given us. Now, if you know that the Divine Mother of the universe has given them to you as fruits for you to live a dharmic life in a satisfactory mode, then you're not going to be bound by them. You're going to be reverent about them. See, the four fruits of life are dharma. Oh, she gave me these teachings before she gave me wealth, before she gave me the ability to satisfy my desires, before she gave me the desire to be free. So those are called the four fruits of life, purusharthas in Sanskrit. That's some other teaching that's very ancient. Now, if I wasn't aware of the four fruits when I came into the body-mind mechanism and had my birth with parents in this physical world, and I'm not aware of that, then Dharma is taken out of the picture. Go outside in the West and see if you can find anyone talking about or practicing Dharma in the household. So we feel like bringing back the Dharmic teachings is paramount. If people are having a hard time with the objects and wealth, and even the dualities like wealth and poverty, then they probably should start taking their mind off of that duality and putting it on the solution for it, which is this wealth of Dharma that flows in and out with the tattvas. So if I have a higher consciousness brought to bear, like they practiced meditation and they saw the Devatma Shakti in everything, then these rishis had a great advantage because they knew that the intelligence was the primary thing. Mother intelligence was the primary thing, and all the objects were as youthful as clouds without rain, without her. I don't see how it can be put any clearer than that. And that's why people get bored with the objects. And they're not satisfying after a while, or they get oversatiated with them, too full, and unhappy, uncomfortable. So seeing the divine power in everything, Shakti, would be the solution. So each of these tattvas, as we were saying last week, we had those two charts that showed Divine Mother power, both at the level of the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and also as the various Dharma teachings that flowed out of her. Remember the two charts that were here side by side. that we looked at. And now we want to look at those tattvas that Mother Consciousness mans, see, like stations she visits, and hopefully you will visit with her. You see, whether or not you do, she's still there in everything, and it's the limitation of your own intellect that's keeping you from seeing that. These chants from the Svetashvatara Upanishad are what I'm referring to. And we also looked about two other things in accord with intelligence versus matter. Do you remember the two words that could perk your memory to the two charts that we started off with last week? They both start with P. Prativa, flint-like intelligence. Sri Ramakrishna said, take a flint out of the river, been sitting in the river for 1,000 years, it's still wet, strikes sparks immediately, even when it's wet. That's the kind of intelligence that's inside of you, if you're seeking Divine Mother wisdom, or if you've already, like the seers, known Divine wisdom and remember it. Smrita Shakti Rupaya. And next to that, we had this other chart that had a key word to it too. Do you remember that one? Prakasha. Very good. So Pratibha and Prakasha. And Prakasha Shakti is the revelatory power in everything. So there's unfortunately, side by side, there's a obscuring power and there's a distorting power. If you're under the influence of the obscuring power, then you don't see jack, you know what I mean. You don't see a thing. Everything seems to you to be an object for your desire and your pleasure, or your frustration and your anger, depending on which way you go with it. So the revealing power in everything is completely clouded by you. That's called the veiling power of Shakti. Then if you're under the power of distorting Shakti, it's called Vikshepa Shakti, then you're looking at something and you're not seeing what it really is. You may even have an inkling that there's something true in it, or something real, or something beneficial, but it's being covered, or not just covered, because that would be obscuring power. It's being made to look like something other than it really is. That would be Vikshepa. So there are people walking around, under the influence of Vikshepa Shakti, who are not seeing this as Brahman, who are not seeing this as intelligence, who are not seeing this as divine, and who are not seeing themselves as potentially divine. Let's say they're sinners, or they're ignorant, or their ego is so inflated that they don't see anything but that. Everything's about their own small self. It's all about themselves instead of about others. They're selfish instead of selfless. So this is a person who's under the influence of Vikshepa Shakti, the distorting power. So other people are walking around with it all obscured. It's almost as if they could care less that there's anything to be seen here. They're just taking it all at face value. And occasionally they might get a little bit of revealing power happening in them, sattva, and occasionally they might just regress back to brooding about things that happen to them. So there is a power we saw last week called Prakasha Shakti, which is the third power in Shakti, Mahamaya, we're talking about, that will bust everything wide open. And you'll be able to see everything as it truly is. Like the teaching we sometimes mention about Dalai Lama, you look at the tree and you're seeing basically the obscuring power. The tree is not a tree at all. Matter is not real. Both science and Vedanta have agreed upon that, each with their own take on it. So you're looking at all objects and they're not at all what they appear to be. So where is the real tree or the real couch? It's vibrating particles. If you could see vibrating particles, then you could see the real tree and the real couch, but you can't because the senses aren't attuned to something that changes that quickly. How quickly? Billionth of a second. You can't know particles, so you can't know an object. So what about the essence tree? The Buddhists and Advaitas would say the essence tree is different. See, that's beyond the appearance tree, and the real tree is the essence tree, the treeness of the tree. So you can see how those three could also fit with obscuring, distorting, and revelatory power, which is in your mind. So we talked about that as a quick review there in terms of prakasha. So we had pratibha, a flint-like consciousness or intelligence that would strike sparks for you. Your mind would always be lit up. You could use it at any time to tear away the coverings or the distortions and always be in a state of revelation. It's not given to many people to live on the edge of Mother's sword like that. People we've heard about who are great prophets and so forth in other traditions only have that kind of revelatory power happen to them every once in a while. And all of a sudden see a burning bush, or see Christ on the road to Damascus or something. Everything gets torn away and you see something much more real, much more towards the Mahamaya aspect of things. Not given to a lot of people to experience that. There are other beings who are living in anticipation of that. They practice their 4 yogas every day. They meditate, they serve beings as God, serve God in all beings is what we say, and they study the scriptures for keys to the truth, and they do their worship, you see. And so these 4 yogas keep them in a state of anticipation that the Avarana and Vikshepa Shakti will come tumbling down at any given minute, and they'll be able to see what's behind it. That's Prakasha Shakti showing herself to you. This is called revelation in our language. So you can see the truth. You can see the truth of everything. And if you were to able to elongate that experience of Prakasha Shakti and remain on the cutting edge of her sword as long as possible, or in a state of higher awareness as long as you possibly could, then you would be a seer. And Prakasha Shakti would be your muse, you see. So we salute the Prakasha Shakti. You see, it's like sometimes we even sing about that. Prakritim paramam devim prasanam pranatarti hantrim yogendra pujam jugadharma patrim tam sharadam bhakti vijnana datrim Daya Swarupam Pranamami Nityam Devim Prasanam Pranatarti Hantrim Yogendra Pujam Jugadharma Patrim. Basically, O Divine Mother, Sharda, propitious goddess, killer of misery and souls resigned. Savior of religion in every age, by saints and sages worshipped, O Mother kind, give us love and wisdom, thou. O grace incarnate, to thee we bow. So this is written by a soul who is a monk, who had the vision of Divine Mother of the universe, even in his very life, and then who wrote these 8 verses, Sharda Ashtakam, on her. See, during his life, he wanted to propitiate her. He wanted to invoke her in everything. So he was a person who had seen beyond the veil of Avarana Shakti and had gotten rid of the influence of distortion called Vikshepa Shakti and was living in a state of revelation, Prakasha Shakti. I'm going on about it because it's such a key teaching then to our tradition, and what to speak particularly of the Ramakrishna order, whose Great Mother of the Universe means Sharda Devi, who is Sri Krishna's divine consort and wife. So with those kinds of beings in our memory and those kinds of teachings available to us, then we would move quickly to remove these veils of obscuration and cure the distortions of our mind. It might be a formula for your life, you see. Without even entering into a philosophical system, you could just say, I want to see through appearances, and I want to remove the distortions in my mind. So then I have to find out what's obscuring and which distortions I particularly favor in my ignorance, and solve them. So it's up to you then, you see. It puts the ball in your court, and you become a sadhaka, not just a moralist, or not just praying, you see, but invoking. You pray to something, you hope it exists, but if you invoke something, you know it exists, and you're trying to awaken prakasha, have a revelation of that in your own heart and mind. So there's the body-mind mechanism, but then there's the heart and the intelligence. So Pratibha and Prakasha, remember those teachings, and then remember the other two charts where we actually fleshed out and looked at the Divine Mother reality in two charts. One in terms of the Trinity and how she gives the mantras and the Upanishads and Vedas to Lord Brahma at the beginning of a cosmic cycle. And these are all the seed words he needs to project this beautiful and fantastic and complex universe of worlds of name and form and time and space. Not just this one out here, because this is the outer 10 tattvas we're just talking about. 5 elements, 5 senses. But you take those and look at the 5 elements and 5 senses back in your dream state, and you've actually entered into the kingdom of heaven within. Now, if out here your senses became so keen, it's like, say, Sherlock Holmes, see, that you're using all of them at once. Because even an animal can use 1 or 2 or 3 at once. Smelling and eating at the same time is really into those 2 senses, you see, when the dog has his meal. And his ears are probably also perked up, so he's using 3 senses at the same time. So a human being should be able to use all 5 senses at the same time. If they can do that out here, can they do that inside? Like tonight in dream, if you are able to use all 5 of your senses and be fully aware of them, because based on Prakasha Shakti, everything was revealed to you, then your dream state would be the kingdoms of heaven. I mean, you'd know what Jesus saw in his own meditations in the Garden of Gethsemane, while the other apostles were trying so hard to see something inside, see. Maybe thinking that they had to use these 2 eyes to do that. So if they saw something floating on the edge of their eyeballs with their eyes closed, they thought that was some sort of revelation. But he had opened his 3rd eye. If thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. And he was seeing through and past all the 10 senses. And to him, as he saw past it, he saw all the seeds that were given to Lord Brahma by the Divine Mother in deep sleep. He went into a 3rd state of consciousness, which is the 3rd world, beyond the 3 worlds, and saw everything as essence. Now he's beginning to see the treeness of the tree, manliness of man, womanliness of woman, and the essence in the Dharma, and so forth. And so all the tattvas are fully manned with awareness. Pure conscious awareness, timeless, deathless consciousness. These are 2 ways in which Vedanta would put together a few key words to give us an idea, to sort of transmit to us an idea of what consciousness is. Remember, it would be very difficult to find that until you shut off all the tattvas and take them back into yourself. Then yourself is saying to itself, what a dream I had. If you see waking and dreaming as 2 forms of dream, like Ramana Maharshi said, dream number 1, dream number 2, then you're getting closer to your witness, aren't you? You saw that it was all a dream. All of this is a dream, and when you take all of this back into dreaming tonight, all of that is a dream too. And when those two go back into deep sleep, then there's the absence of all form, absence of name, absence of time, absence of space, and no karma for a little while. Karma will come dancing back when you wake back up. But for at least a little while in deep sleep, karma has been truncated. That is, there's cause there, but there's no effect. So these are matters of fact of your everyday life. These are the things that you need to study and take seriously. Lower knowledge that gets you money in a job and helps you to enjoy objects and everything, those will be fine if you study these important facets. So the Shaivites did that with with Lord Kapula's 24 cosmic principles that are so famous. Now that we've gone through that review of those 4 charts, let's look at tattvas as they were seen later on after Kapula. Probably several thousand years, the Shaivites put an umbrella over this. They said, oh, that's marvel of you, samkhya very much, as I say, to Lord Kapula for putting together these 24 cosmic principles. Basically, you can see them there at the bottom. What are they? Pancha Mahabhutas, Pancha means 5. Pancha Tanmatras, Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Gyanendriyas, right along the side there. And you can see basically Prithivi, Jala, Agni, Marut, Vyoma, are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So nothing all that stupendous about that, but it is nice to gather them together into a 5. And just like you'd want to keep all your 5 senses keen, wouldn't you want to keep all the 5 elements in mind? Because if you let them go, they tend to, just like the senses, maybe you only hang out in 1 or 2 of them for a few weeks or a day or a month or a lifetime. My teacher used to say, if consciousness comes down and selects for its habitat water, and then it'll probably be a fish, because it's just limited itself to 1 element. So consciousness is manifesting in tattvas and in bodies, because bodies are also tattvas. Why else wouldn't they be when bodies are made of air, earth, fire, water, and ether, and senses are concentrating on air, earth, fire, water, and ether? If the Karmendriyas and the Gyanendriyas are focused all on 5 elements, then you've got a worldly person, earthbound soul, Jivamutta, embodied in the Bhutas, in the realm of the Bhutas, which are Mahabhutas. So the great elements, they called them. This is a Tantric system, so instead of just saying, you must give up the 5 elements, it's saying, why don't you just call them great? Maha means great. These are eternal elements. Even though this is the grossest form of them, down and out, you see, where we are right now, is there anything not great about what you see around you? Isn't it vast and infinite? Purnamidam, Purnamidam, Purnamidas, Purnamidachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vashishyate. All of this that you see outside is vast and infinite. Even though it's finite by nature, because we can't know it, because we're not seeing it. We're not connecting it to our own intelligence yet. Think about it, people are thinking it to be an independent existence. Independent existence, everything exists independent of me. They're not thinking all of this came out of me, like the kingdoms of heaven are within, or something. Or all knowledge lies within you. So if that's the case, then if these active senses are all gained, you see, are all utilized just for gathering what the 5 elements formulate for it, and so are the Gyanendriyas enjoying that, because that's just tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, and smelling, and acting and procreating and excreting and handling and so forth. All of these are focused on the five elements, then consciousness going down and out. It's rainwater seeking the lowest place to settle. But marvel of marvels, if all of a sudden I call these great and put them together as a fivefold package and see how my senses can deify them, like Samkhya and Shaivism would be wont to do, then I can all of a sudden live a perfectly happy life here in the Dharma. See? Didn't Sri Ramakrishna say that? This world is okay. Here I can eat, drink, and be merry. But his eating and drinking and being merry is far different than a worldly person's limited view, who's just using one sense to enjoy two or three elements, or any combination of that. Everything has been visited by Prakasha Shakti. Everything has been lit up. You say like a match in a dark place, you say. Everything has been lit up because Prakasha Shakti, or Mahamaya, visited my consciousness and raised my awareness up different kinds of centers, which we will look at, the chakras, you see. The 7 worlds inside. We'll look at that later. See that? Nice new coloration to this chart of the 7-holed flute that Sri Ramakrishna meant this. Your body-mind mechanism is a 7-holed flute. See, it has 7 centers in it. You should play music with all 7, he says. So, some numbered systems here for you to consider, just to remember that the 24 cosmic principles, these 4 sets of 5, and these 4, mind, its thoughts, its intellect, and its ego, are 24 cosmic principles. So from this dotted blue line down, you have Maya. Name, form, time, space, and causation are all going on here in a combination. But remember what I'm saying, if Divine Mother, if the individual soul has been made aware that all of this is her play, then she likes to sport in that particular soul. Lord Vashishta said, Divine Mother Shakti likes to sport in those souls who dance in awareness within the 24 cosmic principles. So when we make a distinction between these tattvas and these higher tattvas, which the Shaivites came along very wonderfully and actually added in for us much later, then we know that it's not really a matter of higher and lower. It's a matter of consciousness being aware that it's higher and lower and acting accordingly. Because then the greatest revelations can be had even here amongst the 5 elements. Here I can eat, drink, and be merry, because I'm not attached to them, and I'm just entertaining them as my own projection. And I can give them up, or I can attach and detach at will, as we said. Let's look at some of these quotes that are up here that are very beautiful. It says, "It is the nature of reality to be or become. Shakti is the supreme. Shakti in the supreme is the living embodiment of bliss, the background of which is Shiva, the principle of pure sentience as revelation." There's that word pratibha again, you see. So the great living Tantricist Manoranjan Basu said this in one of his books on Tantra. So he says first, it's the nature of reality to be or become. So it's not like being is the only thing and becoming should be denied. Becoming should only be denied if you're attached to becoming, because it's not an ultimate truth. You never grow, you never get wise. Your nature is that. It's consciousness, it's pure intelligence, it's pure being. And when you projected everything, then you forgot that. So then you have to find somewhere in here to remember it. Good luck with that. People are not remembering very well when they're attached to the 5 objects and the 5 senses. They're not remembering their mother. the divine Shakti that's existing at the foundation of everything. They tend to forget her. And the gods and goddesses also get forgotten. And the prana through which they travel through waking, dreaming, and deep sleep also gets forgotten. And so much is then X'd out of the equation. Let's go back to having all five senses and all five elements utilized as revelatory power. If you have a higher consciousness, then when you look out at the mountains, you'll go into samadhi. Whenever Sri Ramakrishna saw a picture of the Himalayas, then he would go into samadhi. So that's just rock and stone, and water, ice. And so why would one person look at it and say, oh, that's hard to climb or something? Another person look at it and say, I'm going to climb that. Another person look at it and say, it's beautiful. I'm going to put a picture of it on my wall. But then Sri Ramakrishna has a picture of it on his wall in his room and thinks of God every time he sees it. You see the difference here. So all the five elements and everything that they formulate, if you were having all of your five senses aware, then all of this would be inspirational to you. This is really the crucial difference between a meaningful life and a life that's lost all its meaning. Because people are complaining about life losing all its meaning. Well, they need to sit down and look at things again. If they sit down quietly and look at air, earth, fire, water, and ether, and all the fullness that's around them, even if it's not an internal meditation, and then they'll start to be visited by who? Revelatory power? Who? Prakasha Shakti. She'll all of a sudden tear down veils of obscuration and remove distortions that were there when they were on the run. See, they're on the run through the five elements, like fast food on the run. And in deep sleep, they're also on the run, running themselves ragged in dream, like a runner running a race in a dream, Gaudapada says. And maybe not getting any rest and reflection in deep sleep, because they don't go into it. They spend all their time dreaming. Dream number one, dream number two, and they don't get this empty fullness of deep sleep that's healing, you see. So all the five elements, this is precisely why the cliche of sitting and watching a flower bloom, the yogi just sits there and waits for the flower to bloom, you see, one day, and watches it very slowly. I mean, hours go by, and he loves to see that. But if he's on the run, he'll never see that. He'll have to take someone's word for it if he's even interested. So meditation slows time down. There's a song that says, practice meditation and slow time down. Cut time away. The song in India. That's its first line. The lyrics of someone's song there, you see. So you have these 24 cosmic principles, and you have this nature of reality is to show itself as that. Shakti takes Shiva's, Paramashiva's creative power and demonstrates it through these things. This is her play of revelation. She wants you to be an observer of it. So if you participate in it, you should participate hand in hand with her. Like a child shouldn't let go of its father's hand, Sri Ramakrishna said. See, going through a crowd. So if the son lets go of the hand, he gets swept away by the crowd. But if the father takes his hand and won't let it go, then the child is guided safely. So you have to make sure that you belong to Divine Mother Power. See, that this is her power coursing through you, and so you'll never get lost when you take that attitude. Not just, oh, Mother, hopefully I can hold on to you. So, Mother, hold on to me. What do you see in your meditations? Not what I try and see in my meditations that looks like you. So being and becoming, take your choice, but both of them are in the nature of reality, says the Tantra. You won't find a teaching like that said very often in non-duality or in Vedanta or Buddhism. In Tantra, it's all about that. Of course, Tantric Buddhism, that's a nice hybrid. How about the beautiful song Across the Way, written by a non-dualist? Shankara sings, O Lady Supreme, may all my mind's functions be thy remembrances. May all my words be thy praises. May all my acts be obeisances to thee. It was said by a male, by a Hindu male, by a monastic Hindu male, by a Shaivite monastic Hindu male, who is also a worshipper of Divine Mother. The great Adi Shankaracharya, who was Gaudapada's student, and who wrote some 12 or more scriptures. He calls an Amsa avatar. So beautiful that he would sing that, or maybe could put it something like this. Paravidya Rupini Paramatma Shakini Parame Swarupini Devi Paravidya Rupini Parashakti Daini Parame Swarupini Devi Parashakti Daini Parabrahma Sakshini Jaya Parameshwari Devi Parashakti Daini Parabrahma Sakshini Jaya Parameshwari Devi Jaya Bhuvaneshwari Jaya Bhavatarini Om Tripura Tundari Devi Jaya Bhuvaneshwari Jaya Bhavatarini Om Tripura Sundari Devi Deva Devi Swarupaya Brahmakala. One of these verses out of the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam Matrika Stotram, of which there are 2 or 3 in existence. So basically, as Shankara says here about the Divine Mother, she's the bearer of the Atman. She's the essence in all beings. She is the primordial substance permeating nature, life, and mind. She is the eternal wisdom ray that emanates from the exquisite form of Paramashiva, like awesome displays of circular lightning, transforming miraculously into countless worlds, hosts of beings, and infinite arrays of objects. So I've seen circular lightning before. Once I was in Iowa, I think. I saw in the night sky, midnight sky, 5 or 6 lightnings connect together to make a circle. It was mind-blowing, as they say, very amazing. So we think of that connections that she makes that are immediate, and with power, Shakti power that's in everything. So beings are apt to write scriptures and stotrams and bhajans and other chants and everything when they become aware of this liberating power, this Prakasha Shakti, this Pratibha. So 2 quotes there that usher us into seeing the top half of this. Let's look at what the Shaivites added as far as other tattvas. And these are not too hard to understand, right? 5 elements, 5 active senses, 5 knowledge senses, tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, and smelling, and 5 tanmatras, which are called subtle elements. These are all the 20 things that Kapila outlined for us. Thankfully, he recognized that they were a quintuplication process, or a set of 5-fold evolutes or tattvas that were flowing out from divine reality, and consciousness could then man them and then flow back in and then take them away. This may be like an escalator. See. So get an escalator going down. So that's the 24 cosmic principles going down out into the earth plane, you see. Then you ride them down, and the escalator takes you down. Then you look for the escalator to take you back up because you're through down there on the ground floor. You did enough shopping, you see, on that level, so now you want to come back up. So you take the escalator up, and as you do, all those stairs come with you, and you fold it all back into yourself, and you're on the higher floor of your consciousness. So just like an escalator going down and an escalator going up, consciousness projects these. You see how different it is than taking a look at it as if these were separate, independent realities, as if nature could exist by itself without intelligence or without consciousness. That would be the evolutionary theory, you see, that it all started with a Big Bang, or that somehow energy is responsible for matter. Oh, do say, do tell, because you have pranas, you see, that are also mentioned here. 5 pranas, also 5 of those that are responsible for animating consciousness to move along these tattvas. So you look at Mother and you say, that's beautiful, that escalator going down. I'd like to explore that, but I can't move. So, oh, here, I forgot to give you the 5 pranas. You see. So here, take these, and then you'll be able to walk, and you'll be able to see, you'll be able to excrete waste once you eat. Then you'll be able to do all these things, locomotion. See. But you'll have to use these pranas to do it. So man does not live by bread alone means that Divine Mother Power will give you prana. You don't have much of it when you're born, nor when you're old. So you learn to use it as a body, mind mechanism. And best if you could use it up here. So if you can use it here to act well and good for you, hopefully you'll be successful and happy and content and fulfilled. But I doubt that's going to happen unless you hold her hand or she holds yours. On the other hand, you can, if you consciously utilize these 5 pranas, then you yourself can make this trip, evolve out, and you have a way of evolving back in by using these very pranas. Prana so often associated with the breath so often gone in deep sleep. So what's the connection there? There must be one. So there must be an all-pervasive prana that exists while you're not acting, while you're not thinking, while you're not moving. All-pervasive prana is still there because it gives you back the other 4 later. When you do wake up, then you start in-breath, held breath, out-breath. See, so this is a prana that animates the lungs and makes the heart beat and makes the blood flow through your nerves. But isn't there a prana that would do the very same for the subtle levels of things? Like dreaming tonight, wouldn't you need the same 5 pranas to animate you in dream? There must be a subtle psychic prana, Vivekananda says, that animates you through dream state and into deep sleep and then back out, brings you back out to waking. So you have 5 pranas they teach, but I'm saying there's another 5 subtle pranas, psychic prana it's called, which allows you to navigate these tattvas. You're an intrepid inner traveler, you see, when you get a hold of those psychic pranas and you utilize them consciously. So great if you became aware that your lungs breathe and that means prana, good for you. Don't stop there. Your mind breathes too. And your mind needs prana too to move into these subtler realms. The reason why we don't know about these subtler realms is we don't know about our subtle prana. Who said that? Swami Vivekananda, when he came west in 1893. I feel I've taken 2 keys from Swamiji that I accent in my teachings that quite often aren't accented in other circles, is that our knowledge of prana is missing and our knowledge of the tanmatras, or dreaming elements, are missing in us. So the 5 pranas, we want to become aware of them in deep sleep and in dreaming. They're key to that. And you'll find them mentioned in the Aitareya Upanishad and the Prashna Upanishad. Some of the minor Upanishads also mention them. So to become aware of them is to be able to utilize them eventually. Now, if you looked at the upper umbrella that we're talking about here, now that we've refreshed our minds about this, you'll find out that they started adding in these upper 12 tattvas. And part of the reason why we're showing this is because this is Maya per se, and this is where Mahamaya kicks in. See, that is, there's a greater amount of animating power in the mind than there is in nature, and in intelligence particularly. See how buddhi connects to wisdom, and how chitta, the thoughts, connect to action, actions, the cause of things, and how mind connects to attraction. It's attracted to higher things. And so all of these ways ego would connect to time and self, and time in phases. So all of these next tier of tattvas, wonderfully added by meditators, in this case, who were Shaivite, in their tradition was to worship Shiva, they added these in for us and stacked it as a roof on top of this house that Copula built. And so now we have more of an idea of what we're going to when we meditate, what's happening to our consciousness when we lift off of the lower floors of the Lord's mansion and go to the higher rooms in the mansion. And you can see that everything becomes subtle. How is that time and space and so forth show their essence. If Prakasha Shakti is going to reveal things to us, this is where she starts really doing it. The meditator now finds time as its essence, phases of time and their operation of everything, cosmic laws called niyati that rule over all these other lower laws like gravity and so forth, karmas, and then also the Purusha itself, which is much truer than the Ahamkara. The Ahamkara being a kind of shadow that floats by as self, but the Purusha being your true individual self. I would say Ahamkara, the non-self, that's so often a problem to people to try and, a sort of empty balloon kind of self. But the Purusha that connects to, that's a part of these higher tattvas, is your true individual self. That's got a basis in reality, therefore it's part of Mahamaya. So below this blue dotted line you see the difference between matter and intelligence kicking in, if you want to put it that way, and or matter and spirit. Now we talked about the buddhi being attracted to, connected to intelligence, vidya. Vidya is a very powerful thing, wisdom. And action, that is, the illusion of action, begins to become more and more refined as it gets up to the higher tattvas. And raga is the power of attraction. At that point, the mind sees that the attracting power outside is less effective and inferior than the attracting power inside at its source. So the soul attracted to God becomes revealed here, like the devotee attracted to Ishvara, and down here it's the child attracted to the mother, or the wife attracted to the husband, and vice versa. So when raga shows itself here, it could also be at a very gross level the soul attracted to objects. Why does the object have such a power of attraction for people? So much so that they'll give up everything to try and own it, and then they'll covet it and won't let go. Selfish grasping will take place. A nice term that the Buddhists would give to us. So manas and raga is a very important connection. So the fourfold mind has its connections inward to these higher principles. Now you have to think of these as your inner life, like the kingdoms of heaven are really being unveiled to you here by Prakasha Shakti. And it's hard to say, but when the atomic particle becomes so fine that it disappears and it graduates into a finer particle that's inside. So you're giving up your attachment to atomic particles, and you're beginning to understand by way of saying atmic particles. So atomic particles and atmic particles, or particles of matter and particles of intelligence. Next week I want to bring in the Gyanamatra chart with its new coloration, and side by side show you, along with the different levels of vibration that particles take on, so that pretty soon you would get to an intelligent particle. See? So what I'm saying by this is that the worlds that you'll be attracted to through raga are not like this. They're not based in physical spatiality or physical solidity or far-flung dimension that you could see with physical senses. It's sort of like all this knowledge in a computer chip kind of way of thinking about it. Of course, we don't want to go towards the sentiency of a computer chip, but that is artificial intelligence. But what we're trying to say here is that these kingdoms of heaven within you are extremely subtle, and your consciousness doesn't take up space there, and no time passes there in your consciousness, and name and form is almost swept away. And so it's another way of saying that you realize that all of this has come out of your awareness. And when it got far flung from the source, and it became so widespread and so multifarious, so many varieties, Vaichitra, Tantra says, were there, that then you began to believe that everything was expansive in a physical way. But you have to relearn that all of this taken back in is as minute as could possibly be, minuter than an atom. The Upanishads use that expression. She is minuter than an atom. So the worlds you're going to visit in dream tonight, aren't they as if not even there when you wake up? And you didn't go leave your bed to experience them? You were lying there the whole time, your five senses were shut off, you weren't aware of the five elements, you just involuted, and you visited a place that was tinier than an atom, yet consciousness was there with all of this, but reverted back towards its subtle essence, sukshma. See? So the gross worlds, the subtle worlds, and then the causal worlds are inside of you. And if you're very much in a habit of thinking of worlds being physical and outside, then none of this will be available to you in your lifetime. You won't entertain it. You won't try and meditate upon it. You won't try and involve back to these subtler tattvas. You won't consider them to be real. You'll only consider the world to be real. And so the refined nature of Shakti power will be alien to you. You won't know how quickly she moves and how quickly she can move your consciousness. And that's, of course, then being left up a creek without a paddle, out here in the outer world, with only evolution to guide you and no thought of what exists inside of you, despite what Christ, Buddha, Krishna, and others have said about the presence of these inner worlds and the psychic prana you need to visit them. So charge up your chitta. What's that? Your thoughts. Charge up your thoughts, and then they'll become buoyant like a hot air balloon. When they become buoyant, then you're going inside. This is all mentioned by Sri Ramakrishna, and we can talk about it later in terms of how you go inside in 7 ways, with these 7 lokas, because Kundalini is a very well, hard to say, but it's very much shared by Vedanta and Tantra. There's a Yoga Kundalini Upanishad that we teach from, and that I wrote a book called Reclaiming Kundalini Yoga that reminds us that these worlds inside are subtler and subtler and subtler till they're almost causal. The consciousness is going to have to open its third eye in order to see them. The Buddha said, I have the Dharma eye inside of me. Christ said, King, if thine eye be single, you should know the truth. Krishna says, I have opened the Jnana Chakshu, the wisdom eye. So all these beings have followed the course of divine Shakti, Mother Shakti, as she helped them refine their look at all of these levels of consciousness. I mean, in a sense, nobody's really ever mapped out what the kingdoms of heaven are all about until this happened. Until Kapila gave us this, and Shaivism gave us the top tier. And we're still thinking that heaven is somewhere outside of us, up there. Or what are we thinking? Maybe we're not thinking at all. But this is mapped out for us by great thinkers who meditated and who visit these tattvas. The Tibetans found out how to do it after death. There's a bardo, a period of time in which the soul will detach from these after it dies. Gives up the 5 elements, gives up the 5 senses. So why is it giving them up? So that it can take on the subtler senses. So that it can visit its own intelligence in its mind, buddhi, and charge up its own thoughts further there with psychic prana, so that it can go deeper and deeper inside of its this subtle and causal world that's all a matter of its own design. And she's the great architect of it. I mean, here, look at this. I chanted it actually before. She who is known by the seers to be the imperishable Shakti is the soul of all mantras. Without her, O fair ones, all the tattvas are as useful as clouds with no rain. She is the luminous being of perfect eye consciousness, inherent in the multitudes of words. She is the secret of all mantras, whose essence consists of the highest non-dualism. O goddess, from Lord Brahma out to the earth, you pervade everything as matrika, particles, full of the luster of Parahanta, the creative power of Paramashiva. Well, here's Paramashiva up here, see? And here's Parashakti, who takes that wisdom, the creative power of Shiva, and fashions all the universe of space and time, from the causal to the subtle to the gross, and then withdraws them back at the end of a cycle. At the beginning of a cosmic cycle, O Mother, you gave Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva the Vedas and all the seed mantras in order to project this, so that billions and billions of souls can move amongst these worlds. If you went to a subtler tier, because remember intelligence versus matter, if you're going to a more intelligent level, Mahamaya and her realms as compared to Maya and its realms. Remember Ramakrishna says Maya is like a cat with its claws out and its teeth bared, grabbing a rat. See, but Mahamaya is like a cat with her lips over her teeth and her claws retracted, grabbing her kitten. See, so the souls that visit this without her, the lower Maya, suffer. And the souls that keep her in mind, based in this, are her own children, her own precious spiritual children, who have kept this in mind, these great systems, when they visited the lower tattvas. They kept the higher tattvas in mind. We know those as realized souls, or beings who came into this earth with their perfection intact, and who suffered even all the ills here and still remained the same. Knowing that karma, is of the mind and so forth, lower mind. But the higher mind, what was that? You see, they realized it in a higher level of their own consciousness. So if you see this is a subtle white line here called mixed tattvas, and then here are pure tattvas. So down here are impure tattvas, that's called ashuddha. Here are mixed tattvas, that's called shuddha, half pure and half impure. And these highest tattvas are called shuddha, pure. So let's shift from here over to this chart for the remaining minutes of this first half and see what they mean by some of these higher tattvas and what they mean by purity. So it's not like moral and immoral, as I've said before when I've taught this. Shuddha, ashuddha, shuddha. It's not like some things are evil and some things are good. Some things are dirty and some things are clean. That's how the puritanical Western mind might think about it. But to them, in India, the seers, pure means closest to the source, and impure means farthest away from the source. And then there are some middling levels that are close, not so close to the source, but not so far flung from the source either. So we're talking about purity, mixed purity and impurity in that sense, not in the moral, immoral way. Like, that we're constantly, like virtue and vice, we're constantly on this rag about these dualities. But they're looking at it more as a triputi. So remember, if you're looking at tattvas, worlds, then this is how they would set it up in the sense of the three worlds. The quote says, in Indian philosophy, the terms pure and impure do not necessarily correspond to morality and immorality. Here, the word impure does not mean dirty or corrupt, but rather what is distant from reality, which is ever pure. Therefore, mind in its ego-tainted knowledge, energy in constant flux and change, and dense matter, these are considered impure. So, mind in its constant flux, energy, prana, and matter, like the five elements and so forth, these are considered impure. They're lower tattvas. You can see them down here. See, and there's the Mahabuddhas, 5 of them that were there, and there's Deha, which means the bodies of beings. Deha means different bodies, physical bodies. There's desire. There's the Indriyas, which are right here, 10 of them. And there's the Tanmatras, which are right here. And the Antakarna, right here, the fourfold mind. So you can see how they fall in a division which is called ashuddha. Doesn't mean corrupt or dirty, because these things, we already said, could be divine too, depending on the consciousness that visits them. Some beings would use them to do evil works. Other beings would see them as being a perfect place to express the spirit. Being and becoming, see. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say that about these things. You see, that basically a lamp, you see, it shines on everything, but you can't actually touch the fire inside of it. So that means basically the real pure you haven't got to yet. You're still seeing the mixed pure and impure, and then far away from the lamp there's this darkness, which is totally impure. You don't get the benefit of the light. So the tattvas are all like that. They're all within you. They're all worlds within you, and you haven't brought your consciousness yet to light them up. See, and it's hardest to light up matter. It doesn't receive light very well. Well, that's where the sun shines poorly off a rock, right? Better off a leaf. Pretty good off a lake, depending on the wind, but very good off a mirror. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say there's light shining in everything, but a rock would be matter. You see, very hard to light up matter with consciousness. The two are almost antagonistic to each other. Trying to bring light to this world, you see, that's very difficult. When you do, actually, you get crucified or poisoned or face different difficult difficulties like death from worldly people. He goes on and says here, these are considered to be impure, these lower tattvas, being that they are conditioned and limited. Beyond them and transcendent of time and space is pristine awareness. So let's look at these middle tattvas. We have a minute or two. And middle tattvas are there, you see on this chart: Maya, Niyati, Raga, Vidya, Kala, and Purusha. You'll see them all here, although Shaivism has a couple different versions of these upper tattvas, depending on whether it's Kashmiri Shaivism or other kinds of Shaivism. But you can see basically these are mixed pure and impure tattvas, which are above this blue line and below this red line. So they're mixed because they're not fully able to receive the light of consciousness. Now we're going to look at that after the break in terms of beings who are actually visiting these tattvas. Some beings are relegated to lower tattvas, and they have so much ego in them that they can't lift off of them at the time of death. Some beings are existing mainly at these mixed tattvas, and they have mantra, for instance, and they have a desire to know Shiva, but there's still enough trace of ego in them that they cannot transcend and go to the highest tattvas, purity. We'll look at that after our break, because it's important not just to study the Mayic side of it and all the tattvas, but to put intelligence with it. So let's pause here as a good time, and we will look at how the rest of these tattvas, what their definition is, and then we'll look at the beings who are inhabiting them. By the way, all of you are here. And the lower tattvas right now. Your body is here. Deha. But where's your mind? She says, oh, it's up there. You see. So good, then all of this is fine and I'm wasting my breath. So here we'll pause for 15 minutes and come back to take up this subject and go deeper into the subject of intelligence versus matter. Thank you. Aloha. For our second half, you have tuned in again, I hope. I'm sorry the first half was a little bit abstruse. I want to change this half to the beings that are actually working in the tattvas, or these stations that we're visiting, how different beings are navigating them, or not, as the case may be. They may just be stuck in them and not even aware of them, as if everything is sort of an amorphous mass. That's a better used as a definition for Brahman. That's an amorphous mass of pure conscious awareness, but an amorphous mass of varieties and problems and obstacles and limitations and so forth is what Maya is often defined as being. So we want to give that amorphous mass some sort of definition. And I was saying at the break when we talked about it here on this Happy Birthday Sunday of one of our members, that this is just somebody mapping out the kingdoms of heaven within, which of course Coppola did long before Jesus made that utterance. But it's good to know where we've come from, the path we've taken, and where we've arrived, and how we can get back. It's basically as simple as you can say it. All, of course, on the non-dual truth that consciousness doesn't move because it doesn't have to move. It's already all-pervasive and in everything. And so when consciousness becomes more refined and in know of how it projected all of this, and quits pushing it off on some god or some devil or some sentient principle that's out to cause us trouble on purpose, then it just sees that it's a manufacturer of its own desires. And these desires also have levels, some very subtle, some coming down to as gross as being attached to objects and not being able to free yourself from them all your life. So you're creating these karmas and these complexes around them, which is why people keep coming back age after age in so many births, they say, following that same tract of their habits from last lifetime. And many professions that are the same, doctors, lawyers, and following in the train of their ancestors, and quite often not a really original thought amongst them, most of them. When you get a Vivekananda comes to earth, or you get a system like Kashmiri Shaivism, and someone who describes to you the inner worlds that you've come through as you visited the outer world, even though that is still all a matter of qualified non-duality or relativity, there are distinctions in it that is good to be aware of, like Maya and Mahamaya, intelligence and matter. If we can identify more with the intelligence that formed matter, then we can get to a kind of intelligence that's non-dual, buddhi or Buddha, that is self-revelatory wisdom, like that Prakasha Shakti we talked about. So I want to shift a little bit to talk about the beings who navigate these tattvas as proposed by Kashmiri Shaivism, but not before we finish up this chart, because we were looking at the mixed tattvas being Purusha, the true individual self, Raga, the power of attraction. If you want to know where love came from, as it were, then it might be good for you to meditate on the power of attraction, what attracts particles to revolve around the nucleus of an atom, what attracts the child to the mother, what attracts the devotee to God. All those levels of attraction at the different levels of manifestation that they appear are due to this tattva called raga. Raga can also mean exquisite enjoyment. Not just regular enjoyment, but getting an exquisite enjoyment out of something. So, and they often then give it the definition of a power of attraction. But, like Sri Ramakrishna used to say it, a great magnet, and all of these things are particles. You see, all the beings are particles that revolve around this great magnet. And that great magnet is consciousness, or Ishvara, the ultimate soul, and all these beings that are revolving around it, and all these worlds are all the tattvas and the beings that visit these tattvas. So raga is a very powerful thing to meditate on, the source of attraction. You can see that if you're attracted to the wrong things and they're giving you problems, then to meditate on it would be to see a deeper level of raga. Then you would adjust your love of the world away, and instead you'd love God. And so basically, it'd be like shifting from mammon to God. You should love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your mind, and all your soul. So, and then love your neighbor as yourself. Those would be two very powerful adjustments you could make if you were aware of the tattva of raga and how it was misdirecting you towards love of changing things, love of dependence instead of independence, and love of attraction to unwholesome things rather than wholesome things. It's much like Sri Krishna saying in the Gita, you should beware of what's sweet in the beginning, and you should instead take to yourself what's sour. Because what's sweet in the beginning is that allurement that's taking you in the wrong direction. But what's sour is a practice, like meditating on raga, that will make you see clearly, khyati, the difference between the world and God, the difference between Purusha and Prakriti, the difference between reality and relativity, and then you'll make this great move called viveka, discrimination between the real and the unreal, between the wheat and the chaff. And then you're on a good footing. You see, your consciousness shifted from obsession with lower tattvas and is now attracted through raga to higher tattvas. So these tattvas, even on their own, are important, but if you connect them, like raga with niyati, you can see how raga and niyati are just pretty much across the board from each other here. And the mind is all involved in seeing these higher tattvas. These are mixed tattvas still. So let's get to the pure tattvas. These are inherently pure by nature. Ishvara, or Antaryami, the primeval soul, or the firstborn soul, the inner ruler immortal seated in the heart, they call Antaryami. So it's the most precious of all beings. It's when you became aware of that being, that great soul, then you lost your attraction to the world. If you didn't, then you continued wandering in Maya, which happened to the person who couldn't give up his wealth and couldn't follow Jesus when he had the chance, or the person that said, I have to bury my father first, then I'll follow you, Lord. But Jesus told him, let the dead bury the dead. It's your time to awaken to the light. You follow me right now. Don't get involved in funeral rites and marriage rites and such. Here's your chance to shine and to help awaken, make people fishers of men. So there came a juncture in everyone's life where they had this ability, this possibility. The Prakasha Shakti visited them and said, look at this. See? And some of them were so amazed and so shocked, and then later on were in disbelief. I don't believe that, you see. Or they went to someone who didn't know and talked about him, and they talked them out of it. It was just a figment of your imagination. But there's actually a great moment in time. Time is kalas, and a great moment happened in this cycle that would help you get out of that cycle. That is, help you be free of being bound in the cycle. And these cycles are endless, like wheels inside of wheels, you see. Like, how do you do that? See, like this, right? And there are many other revolving wheels, too, inside of that. And so you have a chance to see through the clock. Because Sri Ramakrishna said that in Bengal, in Calcutta, there's this clock which 1 hour of every year, it lined up so you could see through the clock. Otherwise, you could just see wheels turning, gears turning all the time. So there's this one moment in time where the Prakasha Shakti can reveal to you and attract you to the Lord, and you can get free of the Maya of being of acting, and get higher wisdom. What will that take you to? These higher tattvas called Ishvara, Antaryami. Another one is Atman, Brahman appearing via association with the five sheaths. Different if you identify with the five sheaths than if you just associate with them. The great souls will associate with them because, as I was saying at the break, none of this is really evil. There's really not a problem in it. There's no devil in it. See, there are devilish things that are in the mind that cause these things to appear devilish or divine, depending on how you use your mind and your consciousness. So, if you could identify with your Atman, then you could just associate with them, like attach and detach at will, my teacher used to tell me. Another inherently pure tattva is Sakshi, Brahman as a witness of all phenomena. And parens there, Ishvara prana. See, this prana is so important that when it becomes the possession of the Trinity, that they'll be able to use it to visit you. Like the story of the man who loved Lord Vashishta, but Lord Vashishta lived thousands of centuries or thousands of years earlier, but he's standing in the river, the holy river, and he's praying to Lord Vashishta, and down here in earth, but up here where Lord Vashishta is keeping his causal body, Lord Vashishta feels him praying to him, and then thinks of him, and that man has Prakasha Shakti. So swift, even thousands of years can't divide them. In a split second, the devotee thinking of his master stands in the holy river and prays to him with sincerity. The master feels him in a different realm, in a disembodied realm, and immediately thinks of him, feels him thinking of him, and then the man standing in the river has samadhi, has Prakasha Shakti visit him. Just like that. And walks out of the river later saying, I had a vision of my Lord. So this is happening a lot to probably more people than we hear from. And of course in India, more often than not, there's a lot of that going on. If we tend to doubt it and cast aspersions towards the science of Dharma that supports it, then what can we expect but that we're caught in physics alone, in the physical alone, and think matter to be our end-all and be-all of our existence. For the many decades of our life, we think of nothing higher. We have no higher ideal. Very unfortunate. So to become a witness of that, Sakshi, witness of all phenomena, is to know that all phenomena is happening continually as in a dream. Because thousands of people have died in horrible phenomena that have taken place. And they didn't go anywhere. They didn't come from anywhere. They were in the end what they were in the beginning, just bubbles in Mother's ocean of consciousness. And they form, they live and then they dissolve back into that same ocean. It's not like they're born from nothing. They live for no reason and then they die and go nowhere, or to hell or something. Is that they were the ocean. They just took a part of it and separated themselves from it and dreamed a dream lifetime inside of it and dissolved back into it. That's why they call death an illusion in this tradition, in these traditions. And time also would be illusion, and cycles of time illusory, and so forth. So Sakshi is a very important word. Mahashakti and Kundalini, we get straight to that, and that really segues us nice into these next two charts I want to show in the remaining time in this second class of these three class series we're into. The other class being next Sunday at the same time. Mahashakti is called the dynamic power of Brahman. Kundalini force, this mother force that awakens. And when we awakened her from the root chakra, she tends to move up towards Shiva, who is here. She wants to unite with Shiva. Hopefully you can grab onto her gown, you see, and ride with her up to this highest point, like Sri Ramakrishna did. Because once you awaken her, her directive is to merge with Paramashiva. She's been trapped long enough down in your lowest chakra as potential. She now wants to be transported to the highest. That's her function. She's a coil-up spring. So the Kundalini teacher will say, have you released your spring yet? They'll ask you when you go. Sort of like a Zen koan, only in Kundalini yoga circles. Have you uncoiled your spring? They want to know. Like saying, have you died on your zafu yet? The Zen Roshi will ask. So you need to uncoil this and die to this. This needs to go away, be left behind. And you need to visit your dreams as if they were the next level, the kingdom of heaven within, and move with her to the highest level. So the import of Kundalini Shakti cannot be underestimated in the same way that it can't really be measured. But Sri Ramakrishna said there will be no spiritual growth for you if you don't awaken Kundalini. It's a statement he makes in the Gospel of Ramakrishna. So this is how serious he is about the system of the 7 chakras and how he experienced the awakening of Mother Kundalini by offering her his love, his devotion, his wisdom, the practice of japa to her, everything he offered to her. A great example for us in this day and time. And finally, then there's Brahman itself. These are inherently pure by nature. It's not something that you can make pure. This is the pure essence. What burgeons out of it is Shakti's doing. And with the psychic prana and the prana, all these worlds get fashioned and beings move among it. If there's no other quote here, I don't see any. Let's move then, because we saw how these tattvas are stacked in a 36 cosmic principle list here, which copy list starts from here on down in ancient Sankhya, and how these get fleshed out for us now so that we know where we're going inside. We're going to the power, the source of the power of attraction. We're going to the source of the beginning of time. We're going to the source of wisdom. And these are stations that are there for you to visit. And when you do, then you want to share them with others. That's like Milarepa said that, I think. He said, when I think of the Dharma, I can't help but share it with others. So he doesn't want to keep it all to himself, like eating mangoes in secret. See, and wiping all traces off his face and coming out later and smiling at you, you see. He wants to bring this out for the highest good of mankind and help them lift off like a hot air balloon, turn their minds into a hot air balloon, get them off the water going to the lowest place syndrome, and help their consciousness elevate, refine, and move to these higher climbs, like white swans flying to higher mountain lakes, Buddha said, to get more pure and purer views. So there's that, and then this chart would be next to look at, because it says there, particularly Kundalini power, the power of Brahman. So we're starting to see that. In terms of that, we can also flip this chart. Let's see here. Not yet. So if we shift our attention here, then what we're doing is looking at the hierarchy of existence in Shaivism. That's probably good we leave this up just for your reference. These are the tattvas, and these are the beings that are manning the tattvas, and you're among them, most likely. Let's see what level you think you can find yourself at as we look at these. Let's go from the bottom up. Basically, first we need to give the teaching of the 3 malas. Now in Tantra, malas are imperfections. Let's call them limitations. They're not sins that are black marks on your soul, I like to say. Just like the tattvas that are impure are not impure because they're dirty or corrupt. You see, they're just distant from the pure reality. It's in the same way there are these people who are laboring with the three malas, these beings, and that's impeding their knowledge, but it isn't. It's veiling, like veiling power. It's veiling the fact that they're the Atman or Paramatman, but it's not a permanent condition that is given to them so that they can never move from their station, like having to go to hell afterwards or something. Sometimes malas are like you're looking at a tree and there's fruits on it, and so you can't see the sun or the sky, so you sit there for a long time. Finally the fruits begin to ripen and they start falling off, and through each fruit that falls you can see a bit of the sky. So that's what a mala is like. That's what an imperfection is like in Tantra. It's not a permanent mark, black mark on your soul. It's a veiling, and they say that this veiling is what you took on before you got back into your next body, so that when it ripened and fell off, you'd have the experience of seeing Shiva. It's beautiful, really. I just have to wait for that fruit to ripen. Now I can see part of the sky, you see. And the more of those fruits that ripen and fall away, the more of Shiva I get, you see. So the malas are a beautiful teaching. Let's look at them closer. Anava, Mayika, and Karmika. So a Anava mala would be primal ignorance, konet impurity, deluding power, and obscuring force. You can pretty much see the two Shaktis there, of obscuration and distortion, are a part of that Anava. And notice the graph over here. This is impure, Ashuddha. It's going to turn pure, impure later. So remember, we're talking about beings who are using these stations to move inside. And so if you have a Navamala, it's a very slow maturing fruit on that tree. In fact, it might not fall off for a long time, see. So it's not the best place to be. It's impure. And we're talking about beings now, remember, not tattvas. So there's tattva, tattva darshana, and there's atma, tattva and atma. There's consciousness, and then there's the principles that it will create for itself, like that escalator, and then move up and down through them. But it's always itself. It's the intelligent principle, and the other is the insentient principle. Now, these people, these beings, Mayika, they have a little subtler kind of problem. It provides mind and body, it fabricates worlds, it produces objects, and it encourages enjoyment of objects. So if you have the Mayika mala, you're not so far up the creek without a paddle. You're closer in to your true nature, and you just are mistaking matter for intelligence and pleasure for the highest goal. These kinds of things are pretty common to the world. So a lot of beings are laboring under the Mayika imperfection. This is called Karmika. It limits cognition, it compels people to action, it poses merit and demerit as being real, and it binds people to samsara. If you get a combination of these three malas together, you're pretty much describing 99% of living beings in the world today. You can see them compelled to action, for instance. Even if you take a lot of these negative things away, like, oh, you're ignorant. See, oh no, I have quite a lot of knowledge, thank you very much. Yes, but it's only around physical things. Well, that's enough for me. So even if you take that out of the quotient, you've still got things there like people following rounds of birth and death in samsara, and limitations, and like Ram Prasad Singh's Mother Reality escapes every soul who thinks virtue and vice are real. So if you're still operating under the duality of virtue and vice, or even merit and demerit, then you're a long ways off from understanding Divine Mother Reality, or Lord Shiva. Now, and on this side the graph says pasa, limiting adjuncts. So we've got two graphs here that are measuring for us this inward look we're taking at beings who are moving amongst the tattvas, okay? Sentient beings moving among the insentient principles. Consciousness shifting from one place to another, just like you came from your house today and now you're here and you'll go back to your house tonight. Sometimes I use that in prison to people who say, well, you were in your cell a couple hours ago and now you're here with me, you see. You're here in the dharmic atmosphere. Before you were sitting in your cell without knowledge of the Dharma. So take this Dharma back with you and make the two one. See? With your remembrance, with your memory, memorize, read, worship, do all these things consciously, yes, but constantly, I meant to say, you see, and do them every day until it becomes a habit. Replace those old habits with that. All right, with those seen and known under this dotted line, this very impure kinds of things, that is very distant from your true nature, then let's look at these levels of beings, all falling here in the pure and impure, just like the tattvas fell in the pure and impure, so do beings manning them fall into the pure and impure. So they're going to be still attached to certain things that are not keeping them from realizing Shiva. Is basically what this system say. It's veiling Shiva to degrees. So the Jivatmans, the Mantreshvaras who use mantra, the Vidyas who have higher wisdom, and the deities. You can see these four levels of beings that I met, the Vidyeshvaras too. These are beings that are existing at higher tattvas with more understanding of Shiva. But you can see how the system goes, how it's very interesting to see how much of Shiva is still veiled in some of them. So in the Jivatmas, that means embodied beings. There are three kinds of individual selves. Shaivism says the Vijnana kalas, the Pralaya kalas, and the Sakalas. And you can see there they divide into two. Pakvamala are matured, and they will gain liberation at the time of Pralaya. Pralaya is many ages passing by. So there's, after every 4 yugas, there's an emptiness called Pralaya. Everything goes into dissolution. It's not like sort of, we're fearing Armageddon, we have to be realized before then. It's not like that. It's like there's not just one Armageddon. They happen all the time in different ages. And those ages never quit for you until you can quit believing in time. See? That's a mixed tattva, isn't it? Time. When you know that you're beyond time, then you're timeless. You're eternal. You're not concentrating on cycles of time anymore and worried about them. You've actually transcended them. So you've gone to a higher level of your consciousness where you can have timeless meditation, and when you pass away you can go into a timeless samadhi, or maybe even while you're meditating go into a timeless samadhi. Time goes away, like for 49 days under a bo tree or something, or 12 days in a wilderness and 12 nights. Time just goes away. So these beings gain liberation at the end of a cycle. It's not the best thing, because you should be able to realize you realized right now. That's the best thing. But as time kicks in these cycles, they occupy these cycles, so time seems real to them. So they're working over a long period of time at perfecting themselves, so to speak. And so there are those three. And then let's look at the Apakvamala, the immature. They return again after Pralaya. So basically there's these three kinds of individual selves. One gets matured during time. One has to return after long periods of time because they did not mature themselves. And then there's these Sakalas. So basically what's said overall here, they're bound by the three malas. They receive Shiva's grace through gurus, but they need jnana and diksha. So these beings still have an admixture of these malas in them. That's why they're here. What is that? interesting bumper sticker I saw. It says, I was thinking of it even just this morning. Because we're not all there, we are here. Because we are not all there, we are here. Not all there, you know what that means. We're not all there. See? Why? So, because we're not all there, that is sane, natural, then we're here and embodied. Because if you were all there, here, you would not take on a body. So this idea is getting around even on the backs of cars down the freeway. See, there's some people are thinking, yeah, why did I make the choice to come here? My body's aging, I'm suffering, my children are giving me hell, I'm losing my money, plus my hair. You see, so all these things are going away, and I can't keep them either. I can't hang on to them. I can't take them with me after death. There's all these reasons why I probably should think it over better next time before I take a body. I mean, we know Holy Mother said to one person, probably a person that was at a higher stage than what we're talking about here, she said, may you never come back here to earth again. Birth and death are very painful. So we're not even talking about birth and death yet. To be born, to be knit together in the mother's womb is horrible suffering for 8 or 9 months, you see? And there's songs about that. And if your consciousness believes that you're being born in the womb of a mother and you are the body, that suffering to you is real. If you keep your consciousness free of the whole process of knitting together bones and nerves and sinews and so forth, and then you identify your consciousness with the fetus just before it comes out of the mother's womb, it's different. So it's a matter of having mastery over your consciousness, whether or not you need to suffer so much or whether you can bypass it. Some beings pass away when they're 32, Shankara. Some people 39, Swami Vivekananda. Some people 50, Sri Ramakrishna. So there are beings that pretty much, when I visit the tattvas, I'm only spending 32 years there, sorry. That's all I can bear, you see. That's all I want. And I'm going to put it in the makeup of my birth that I'll remember at 32 who I am and give up the body. Remember what Sri Ramakrishna said about the young Naran, the young Swami Vivekananda. When he knows who he is, he'll give up the body. But he said, I'll keep that hidden from him for a while, see, so he can do the work that I want him to do. So Mother has her plans for souls like that to do works in the world for the highest good of people. All right. So you see the Jivatmans divided into 3 kinds of selves. Have you ever seen or heard of a teaching like this? I mean, this is really mapping out not just the kings of heaven, but the beings who are trying to transcend the kings of heaven. Because heaven is not a desired place to be, as far as India is concerned. Your ancestors are there. That should be enough for you to want to transcend it. So, Pashu, embodied souls, or over here, pure and impure souls. So, Pasu, Pashu, and Pati are the 3 designations here. So, if you, of course, these arrows are going down, that is out. So you'd see how everything comes out of ultimate reality and signs itself to these different tattvas. Fine, don't get stuck there. It's a nice place to visit. I wouldn't want to live there. Is the kind of idea here. So 32 years, 39 years, 50 years, whatever, have your experiences there, do your work as she dictates it to you, and then just be able to move back into your highest nature. Maybe not even leave your highest nature when you're here. See? Retain your awareness while you're here in the body. Then these don't have any hold on you, these malas. The malas didn't pull you into the body. You chose to come into the body of your own volition. So let's look at the Mantreshvaris who are still here. That is, here it says influenced by Maya. So that would still be in here. all influenced by Maya, right? So what are the Mantreshvaris? Sense of attachment to Maya under the control of Maya. So Mantreshvaris mean they've received the mantra, but they haven't yet worked themselves out of Maya by the use of that mantra. There are teachings in India that the mantra is very powerful, and it'll do its work if you're serious about it and repeat it your whole lifetime. But there's also a teaching that says some people get the mantra and just repeat it like a parrot, and they never get free. There are 5 kinds of souls. One has a desire to be free, but never attains it. Desire to be free when you're young, but you never attain that freedom because you don't work to attain it. The second thinks that it can get free by drugs, elixirs, and so forth, and they never get free. They're always bound to nature. The third is who get the mantra, and they use the mantra, but they use it without knowing what it means and without putting their heart into it, you might say. And maybe not even putting their mind into it, knowing what the mantra actually means, that she's the power in all these mantras we chanted at the beginning of class. So I should know her in her 3 forms, Tri Pura Sundari. So I should be looking for deeper and deeper levels of the mantra as I use it. So there's a goal. Mantra is not the ultimate goal, but it's that best universal system that leads to the goal. Mantra will do the purification. So they're still attached to Maya and they're trying to get free. Let's look then at the next level, the pure level, which gets very interesting here. Pati, the Lord. These beings are becoming Shiva. See, first there is to see Shiva, and then you go and merge with Shiva. So the first level of that is the Vidyeshvaras. They're like the Vidyas who are above them, or deeper than them. We'll look at them soon. Except they have a mala of slight separation from Shiva, and they're void of full possession of Shiva. So these beings are very much like the Lord, but I prefer my own existence. See, kind of. I like my ego better than the ego of the Lord. So I'll love him or her, but I'll keep a separate. I keep a separate veil between me and him. See? So it's not like love the Lord with thy whole heart or whole soul. It's not like Sri Ramakrishna, who just loves so purely and so immediately that Mother just took him into samadhi with her. He was the most recent being on earth, I think, that just epitomized love of God. There was just no reserve in him. He was all love for God. And the world, there was no love for the world because the world didn't exist. See? When you love God so much, this all becomes God. You have to understand that. That's why I say even the 5 elements are great. Here I can eat, drink, be merry. So he's just seeing Brahman in everything. He's not saying, oh, there's the object and then there's me. That's all gone in him. So the Vidyeshvaras are an interesting study. How about the Vidyas? The highest order of the universe, Shiva Samya, they're similar to Shiva. They transcend the world of Maya and they're free of all malas. So here's where perfection really begins to manifest itself, in the Vidyas. Notice this tattva here, Vidya. They know, they've come to this knowledge inside of themselves and they've seen the source of it. And where does that connect to? Purity. And where does that connect to? To Jnana Shakti, the mother of wisdom itself. So Vidyas, they have Shiva Samya. That is, they're similar to Shiva. The Vidyeshvaris, I don't think I want to be Shiva yet. I think I'll keep a separate sense of myself from Shiva. You see, then I can have the pleasure of loving Shiva from a distance, as it were. But the Vidyeshvaris are going, I'm similar to Shiva. I'm almost there at the goal. See? Then they say in Shaivism, there's the 7 presiding deities, Ananta, Sukshma, Shivotama, Ekametra, Aikarudra, and Trimurti, and Shikendu. So these are these 7 deities that are forms of the Lord that preside over all of these realms inside. They're higher than the Vidyas, higher than the Vidyeshwaras. They're actually manifestations of Shiva, like Shivotama and Trimurti would be Trinity, right? So you've got all these very high levels of beings that are there as presiding deities over this whole shooting match. And aspects of them appear in all of this. You see, like the powers of the sun to shine and the power of the eye to see, for instance. That would be an aspect of one of these presiding deities manifesting itself further down the tattva scale for the benefit of human beings. But you would have to have eyes to see that, not just see the sun, which right now has come out of the clouds and is glaring at me through the curtain there, but see it as a manifestation of Shiva's wisdom. See, the rays of the sun. We just chanted that at this, on one of these slokas up here we cited. Above the 7 presiding deities are the 5-fold pure order. Shiva himself, Shakti, Sadashiva, Ishvara, and Vidya. And you can see that Shiva himself is called Chit, pure existence. In the Sat Chit Ananda name, for instance, Shakti is the Ananda part, bliss. Sadashiva is divine will. Ishvara is cognization, that is Jnanam. And Vidya is action, how the god of how everything presides over all action, like Karyamaya. See, and it's connected to Nada. You see, that God is sound, third eye. So all of these appear. We looked at Ishvara, Nada, Shuddha, and Bindu, which was, of course, the third eye reference, and Sadakya. I wonder if you remember some months ago when I took out the 6 ways of knowing Brahman in Tantra, and we looked at Sadakya. It's a beautiful system. Mostly has to do with Divine Mother in words. Like she's in every letter, she's in every particle, and so forth. And sometimes we even sing about that in very profound and moving ways. We sing about it from some of the great songs of India. This particular one in Bengali, about by Ram Prasad himself, that Mother exists in the power in all words. Mono boli bhajakali icha hoi torjaya chari guru data maha mantra divaneshi japa kori mono boli bhajakali. Goes on with many verses after that. Means basically, O playful mind, meditate upon the mystery of Mother Kali. That's Mahashakti, Mahamaya. Using any method of worship you please, or simply breathe day and night her holy name, like the Mantreshvaras are doing. As living and transforming power that has been planted in the Guru, by the Guru in your heart. See, that's the mantra the Guru's given you. The very first verse refers to the mantra. Then he goes on singing later, consider lying down to sleep as offering to her, and allow your dreams to become radiant meditations on the Mother. As you wander through countryside or city, feel you're moving through Mother Kali. Like all trees are her hair, you're on her scalp, you see. And so you're thinking microcosm, macrocosm here, and you're transforming, like I said, deifying everything here into aspects of the Mother. You're not looking at it saying, oh, what a drag that is, or oh, I need to clean that, or oh, I got to get rid of that, or I want more of that. None of that's existing, you see. It's just all of this is Mother, and I'm moving through Mother at all times, in all ways. everything I hear becomes her natural mantras, repeating spontaneously as the whole world worships her. So the whole world, these tattvas, are actually just worshipping her. That's their meaning. The meaning for their existence is just to invoke the presence of Mahashakti. It's like these things are waiting for her visit. See, your shrine is waiting for you to come and worship at it. See, your meditation pillow is waiting for you to come and meditate on it. Your library full of good non-dualistic books, waiting for you to come and read it. See, all of these things are just waiting for the visitation of Shiva and Shakti within you. See? So you want to bring that out and use that as your tool, as your precious tool. So at the end, O singer of this song is overwhelmed and cries, wonderful, wonderful. Divine Mother fully exists through every living creature. Divine Mother is there in all of them. O wandering poet, whatever food or drink you receive, offer them as oblation into the sacrificial fire of your body, and meditate intently on her encompassing reality. Bono bole bhajakali. One of the beautiful Bengali songs of Ram Prasad. This translation by our founder, Lex Sixon. So the fivefold pure order is there: Shiva, Shakti, Sadashiva, Ishvara, and Vidya. And then beyond that, what can be said? There's Paramashiva, but he has these parigraha Shaktis. You see that these are Shaktis that help him bring forth this non-dual wisdom that's within him and make it manifest. So she does this work, like Sri Ramakrishna is saying, I can't even move my finger without Shakti. See, he would point to his divine wife, Shard, and say, I can't even move my finger without her. I can't even breathe without her. Well, that's more obvious, because without prana, which is her power, you cannot breathe. She'll sometimes take that away and put you in a breathless state. That's called kumbhaka. And deep sleep is also a rather breathless state. So she's removing the pranas from you and so forth, and then she'll give them back to you. So the parigraha Shaktis are two. Bindu, the universal cause. That's where we have these beautiful words called Mahamaya and Kundalini. And Maya, the limiting force, veiling, distorting powers. So these two Shaktis are, at the behest of Paramashiva, will facilitate all this, that is all this, and allow all these beings to find their place amongst the tattvas and practice accordingly. If they've wandered down into the lowest tattvas, you can see their predicament. And many of these things will be familiar to you as you look back at them tonight in your notes, or when you look at your note, or when you review this film, which is placed in Advaita Academy and also on our own website in a raw form. Eventually will be put on YouTube, but the series. But basically you can look back and see how familiar all of these are to a lot of the people around you, or the people you know of, or the people in the news, or the people in politics, or the people in business, or the people who are suffering, and so forth. You'll find the correlations there. But as soon as they start looking at Shiva and Shakti and using the mantra and gaining knowledge and aligning themselves with presiding deities, because you have to have a deity that in your heart, Antaryami we called back here, Shuddha, in the Shuddha realms you have to have an Antaryami or an Ishvara form that you adore. God with form it's called, who is not a crutch but is an aid. You get to the Father through the Son kind of being that you can meditate upon in form, that will take you eventually to a formless place where these beings are beginning to feel like Shiva, like the Vidyas. Oh, I'm similar to Shiva. I'm feeling more myself that my teacher used to always say, Jiva and Shiva are one. Jiva and Shiva are one. So the Vidyas are beginning to feel that way. that was a quick gallop through this, but again, such superlative and unique and rare teachings of Dharma brought to us by the Kashmiri Shaivism and Shaivism, who, using the Samkhya system of ancient India, were able to flesh this out and fill it out inward, so that we're very certain about our move of involution, not only in from waking dreaming to deep sleep, but from meditating on form and meditating on formlessness, and from passing from the body and moving through bardos that are finer and subtler, till finally we can merge with Brahman, become one with the source. I and my Father are one style, or Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. See, all of this leads up to those great agreements that the Tantrists, the Vedantists, the Yogis all have with one another, following on Lord Copula's beautiful system. Now, in the time remaining, which is, I think, only about 10 minutes, is it 10 minutes? So, where to go and what to do with this, because I would go naturally to this connection of Kundalini, which is what I was thinking of, but actually, maybe we'll have time to look at this, which is another colorized version of a chart that's an old chart, but gets a new facelift here as I colorize more and more of the 350 black and whites that I was putting together for the last 3 or 4 years and turn them into color versions. You can see here that if you are to be able to graduate your consciousness like this, charts like this, remember, if you're looking at them from the Advaita standpoint, they might not be as necessary or interesting to you, unless you're fooling yourself with Advaita. But if you're following the law of avastas, like I need to perfect myself by stages, so I'm admitting that I have a few malas here. See, maybe I should look among these 15 and see which one I have there that's immature yet, you see, that I need to mature so that I can move on to a higher state. I mean, you could probably still be a Mantreshwari, even a Vidyeshwari, and still have some of these malas. Didn't it say that? It has a mala of slight separation from Shiva. So even at the Vidyeshwara level, which of those malas is in me that's making me fail to realize myself as Shiva, or limit myself? So that's a little aside here right now, but if you were to follow the idea of avastas, that I'm purifying and perfecting myself by stages, even though the self is already pure, okay, great, we'll just agree with that, but I don't feel that pure yet, you see. So I need to do a practice, at least wipe the mirror of my mind every day so that I can remain in remembrance of my perfection. That's going to be a problem. I can be perfect, but I can also forget I'm perfect. So if you're following that route, or you could even put it in another way, not just by avastas, stages, but that enlightenment dawns on the mind by stages. Sri Ramchandra said that. So if it dawns on the mind in stages, then I'm going to have to be on the cutting edge all the time, so that when Prakasha Shakti comes to visit me, I will see it. Rabindranath Tagore had a beautiful poem where he said, I stayed awake all night for you, Lord, waiting for you, at the door, waiting for you to knock. And then I just dozed off for 5 minutes. That's when you knocked. You see. So I just lost my vigil for this 5 minutes where my mind fell out, you see, and then the Lord was knocking. I swear he was in there. I came to see him, see, and then you missed your chance. So in that way, then this constant vigil of keeping your mind clean while you're here in this realm of 24 cosmic principles, and you still have a few malas to ripen, is a good thing to remember. So if you were following this, I'm getting a long roundabout way of saying it, you would have to qualify yourself. And the Tantrikas say this is what the qualifications consist of. The qualifications and victories of a Tantric aspirant. We don't have time for the whole thing, but we could start off next Sunday in the third and final class of this series by starting here and then going to the Kundalini Yoga teachings that come next naturally. We can at least take up these 7 qualifications here. First, they say you should be daksha, intelligent. So hopefully you have some inherent intelligence in you. And of course, the gurus will, the teachers, the Dharma teachers, the yogis, the Zen Buddhist Roshis, the Tibetan Rinpoches, the Swamis, the various teachers that are seeing people come to them, probably the first thing they look at is their intelligence showing? You see, do they have any intelligence? And this intelligence is that, back to that first word we had, pratibha, the flint-like intelligence, you see. So they want to see if that's somewhere near the surface. Like Sri Ramakrishna said, the gold of most people is buried under mounds of earth. See? But some, you just brush away a few pebbles and, oh, there it is, shining. So you have to do very little work to get through to these intelligent people, daksha. So Tantra, as devotional as it is, and as deification-oriented as it is, admits right away to the fact that you need to have your intelligence shining. You need to polish off that gold or brush away those pebbles and have your intelligence in your possession. See? And a person who has that intelligence in their possession shines in any spiritual circle. You can see them there. They're interested. They're not bored. They're not brooding. They're not sleeping on it. They're very interested and keenly interested about that. And I've often said, in my own case, when I met my Swami, I hung on every word I heard from him in every class. People around me were, especially the old men who had heard the lectures a lot, were falling asleep. But I was fully awake and listening to everything he said. And so I was keenly interested in that. So my daksha, my qualification, was there. See? And that's the first one. Across the board here, you can see this Advaita. Interesting that Tantra, with all its various admittances of the different varieties of things that are there by Chitra, would right off the bat say, we hope you're a non-dualist. You see, we hope you have that I and my Father are one idea in you, because everything will be much easier for you if you do. If you start off on that footing that I and my Father are one, instead of say, oh, I'm a sinner, see, or I'm imperfect and I'm attached to my imperfections, then it's going to be a very long road to hoe for you to follow this process of maturation. But if they were to tell you early on, you and your Father are one, or you are perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect, or you are one, you are pure consciousness, and that was the first thing you heard, then everything you heard from then on would be based upon that one great mantra. You see, that great saying you heard. My teacher said I was perfect, inherently perfect. So why aren't I that way? Why aren't I acting that way? Why aren't I thinking that way? And so forth. Then you're going to find immediately the reasons. In one lifetime, you'll find the reasons why you're not feeling that at one-ment. See? And you'll get rid of those things that are in the way, these malas, much quicker. So it's all a matter of mental perspective, a mental posture, a manasana, I've been calling it lately, which is the name of our retreat in Hawaii at the end of March next year. Manasana, mental postures. So this superlative mental posture that you take around that is, I and my Father are one, is that the soul is always perfect and it doesn't need work, doesn't need purification, doesn't need evolution, it doesn't need sadhana or practice either. That's a hard thing to say to people who need to practice. But in that case, you're hearing the truth off the bat. then you know the truth, and you can work on measuring yourself up to it, just like these graphs are going from limiting to embodied to the Lord, from impure to mixed pure and impure to pure. You're raising your consciousness. You could say it this way: your consciousness is already here and already pure. You're just beginning to understand that from the standpoint of what? The body-mind mechanism and the 24 cosmic principles, which you happen to be manning and operating right now. That's why before the break I said you're all here in the 24 cosmic principles. So you need to operate these 5 senses. You need to really operate them, purify them. Well, we're running out of time, but those 2 alone are basically very important. If you are intelligence and your perspective was, I am a non-dualist, that you know that you're one with Lord Shiva, that Shiva and Jiva are one thing, then of course you've got a great head start and also almost assured of reaching the goal. If not in this life, then in the next life, or 1 or 2 lives more. Sometimes I've heard that said. So we will start here next week, Sunday, at this same time, and take the rest of these qualifications and show you how 7 victories are gained by the Tantric aspirant. Victory over the bhutas, that is, physical things. Victory over your senses, indriyas. Victory over prakriti, nature, at all its levels, and so forth. Very wonderful set of teachings, again appearing to us out of this beautiful Tantric science and philosophy that is so much one with Vedanta and so much connected to yoga. So here, let's end with a chant. Om Tat Nayo, Om Tat Nayo Ravrindi Mahe, Gatong Yagyaya, Gatong Yenu Pataye, Daivi Svastrastu Naha, Svastir Manusebhyaha, Urdvam Jagatu Bhesajam, Sangno Astu Dvipade Sang Chatushpate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we make a sincere and humble offering of the small self into the great self. May we always delight in this offering and always revere the Lord and the Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings be upon us. May peace be unto the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and prosperity then also come and abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari